Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, hang out with this nerd.
Nerdarch is Ted.
And we're going deep on the Deep Magic series with Clockwork.
Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
All right, well, we're going to delve back into our Deep Magic series. This is what time we got Clockwork. And the design is Scott Carter, development is Steve Winter, and Peter Hogan, editing is Steve Winter, art director and graphic design is Mark Riddell. Hopefully, I'm probably butchering that. Cover art is Marcel Mercado, and interior art is Josh Hass, Guido Kiep, and Marcel Mercado. And the reason why I absolutely wanted to bring that up is because the art in this is fantastic. You only get a couple pieces, but they're so good.
Absolutely. So if you want to grab your copy, down in the description below, there's going to be a link to Drive Through RPG. You can grab your copy there. You get quite a lot for that small price tag. It's $2.99. It's from Kobold Press. You're going to get 3 new subclasses, one of which is Warlock, and you're going to get several invocations there. You're going to get a new patron there, as well as you get 44 new spells. You get some new familiar options, both that apply to the Warlock and the Wizard that are in there. It's a great piece overall.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading it, and you get like a half a dozen pieces of art in it as well. It's like, I think it's actually worth it just for the art, like the price tag alone.
Right.
But you get a bit more than that in here. So we get some new options.
Mm-hmm. So before we get into the options, like the first bit, the first bit right on page 3 talks about the history of technology to a little bit, like, very broad sense in our world versus the fantasy world, and that it's not hard to allow clockwork type things in a fantasy world. It's not ridiculous option. So just reading that part I thought was cool and worth mentioning.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They point out, in Chinese writing, 2,500 years ago, clockwork things were written about.
Right.
And then they also cite an actual example of something being found, 2,100 years ago.
Yeah, an example
in the Greek island.
A sophisticated clockwork device nearly 2,100 years old. It was likely used for astronomical navigation. Yeah, it's definitely feasible to put this kind of stuff into a fantasy world, and why not? So the first thing we get into is Cleric Clockwork Domain. You get some cool stuff. First level, you get proficiency in heavy armor, clockwork tools. You get the blessing of the gears. Your divine insight grants you advantage on attacks made against clockwork creatures and other constructs.
They list 2 deities, right? And I believe these are probably from the Kobold Press setting, more than likely. But so the first one is Volon the Smith, whatever, makes sense, blah blah blah. The next one, Molech the Child Eater. I was like, oh my god, that is your clockwork deity?
Based on the Canaanite god Moloch, this evil being is associated with fires and child sacrifice. His domain grew to include clockwork due to the association with furnaces.
Yeah, and his symbol is a black furnace with a demonic grin. Suggested domains are clockwork and death. So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting take. And I was like, man, what kind of dark deities could we have that are inspired by Mechanus or clockwork creatures? So that little snippet right there is pure gold.
Absolutely. Second level is when clerics get access to their channel divinity. Here you get Construct Mastery. You can use your channel divinity to bring constructs under your control. As an action, you can compel one creature you can see within 30 feet of you to make a wisdom saving throw. If it's a construct, you get control of it. When the effect ends, the construct is aware it was magically controlled by you. Again, I can't stand that, but it fits the theme of Charm of 5th edition. So Kobold went with what's the norm.
Now, I would say kind of like if it's not really an autonomous construct, then it's not going to matter.
Right.
Depending, like a golem isn't going to care that you charmed it.
Right.
It's not. They're not great thinkers. They're not going to be contemplating this at all. It's just a thing that happened to them.
6th level, you get improved mending. Spells that heal or repair damage to clockwork creatures, objects, or constructs. Restore the maximum hit points.
It's strong, but it's pretty limited.
If you're not going to be dealing with constructs on a regular basis, it's a ribbon ability. 8th level, you get channel magic. You can designate one construct that you control to serve as a channel for your divine magic. You can cast spells on that creature that normally only target yourself. You can also deliver touch spells through your designated construct, and it's got to be within 60 feet of you. I love the divergence from.
I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be angered or thrilled by the divergence, to be honest with you, because there is a part of me that's like, well, this is what the design is, but another part is like, oh, thank God, it's just not energy damage or something, or what is the cantrip one? It's almost useless.
Well, it's either you get to add extra damage to a cantrip, or you get to add the extra damage to a melee attack, and it's bleh.
It is very blah.
17th level, beginning at 17th level, you have Clockwork Apotheosis. You can use your action to merge with a construct you control for a minute. Doing so restores your hit points, but not other class features. As if you had a long rest. For the duration, you gain immunities and qualities of the construct, and you can cast spells, use class features, and communicate normally, even if the construct would not normally be able to do so. You cannot do this feature again until you finish a long rest. Pretty awesome. If you're walking around with a construct.
Yeah, if you're not, you're kind of boned. If you are, it's kind of cool because you're like Box from Alpha Flight, where you just meld with the armor, or or some of the mech stuff that you might have. So like when you're getting close to 17th level, you're like, I absolutely need to get me
a stone golem,
some kind of construct to jump into. Even a shield golem's kind of thematic and useful.
So then we move on to Warlock, the Great Machine.
So this is a lot of fun because you're just getting a different kind of warlock patron. So I really dig this concept.
So just everything is getting new spells in this. As I said, there's 44 new spell options. So at first level, you get Clock's Unwinding. Your patron grants you a tiny fraction of its ability to measure and control time. At the beginning of another creature's turn, friend or enemy, before that creature moves or takes any action, you can shift your position in the initiative order. You basically jump in. If you've already acted, you can bounce backwards in the initiative and do an action there. Or if you haven't moved yet, you can do your whole turn there, and you've reset your point. So this thing is really cool if you care about going before something. You have to complete a short or long rest to use the feature again.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that if you bounce and you've already gone and you bounce your initiative, you can either move or take an action. You cannot do both. You're not getting a full round of attack.
Right.
You're getting a partial one, and you can do this once every short rest. It's a cool ability. It's strong.
Absolutely.
But it's not out of sync with other abilities in the game, like Action Surge. Right. And it's actually kind of like Action Surge with the option of moving or taking an action, and the sense that you can also you take a penalty because you have to move your initiative as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm totally okay with this.
So 6th level, you have Machine-like Precision. You can call on your patron to grant you uncanny precision. When you miss with an attack in combat, you can choose to reroll the attack with advantage. Once you use this feature, you must complete a short or long rest before you can use it again. This is a pretty cool ability. You just you get a reroll, and you can do it better.
Yeah, it's been pretty nice. I mean, you could try the same attack with 4d20 rolls if you want to, possibly more depending on what race you are and other things you have going on. But again, it's like one and done.
Yeah.
And when it really matters, you're going to want to try and use this. So I also feel like this is an ability where you might be like, oh man, I don't know if I want to use this now. Maybe I should wait. And so you could end up like missing an opportunity to use it altogether because it is kind of so good.
Right. 10th level, Mind of Gears. Your thoughts become mechanical and ordered like that of your patron. Even if your actions do not. You're immune to psychic damage, and your thoughts cannot be read unless you choose to allow it. The reading thoughts could totally be an awesome ability depending upon the game that you're playing in and what's going on. Immunity to psychic damage along the same lines.
Almost a ribbon ability.
Almost a ribbon ability, considering how rare psychic damage is. But if you're going up against, psionic creatures a lot, oh, I'm immune. Woo!
It is cool in the sense that it's really rare in the game. Having your mind basically be a vault and not be able to be broken into is kind of cool. So I think those abilities combined with the fact that your other abilities are really good, it's nice. It's better than a ribbon ability, and it's going to be useful sometimes.
Right. So 14th level, the mortal mind is not meant to understand the vast complexity of machine intelligence. So you thrust this computer knowledge essentially onto somebody else, and if they fail their saving throw, charisma, it experiences a taste of your patron's mind, and it's placed in the great plan of the multiverse. They take 10d10 psychic damage and must make a further charisma saving throw, and if the second one fails, the creature is stunned for a minute as it reels from the experience. And like all other warlock abilities, you got to do a short or long rest to get it back.
Now, this ability, I felt like it should be a long rest ability.
I kind of agree, considering how powerful it is. 10d10 damage is a lot, but I'm not.
I would have to look at the Fiend ability and see if that resets on a short rest.
Mm-hmm.
If that resets on a short rest, then it's perfectly fine. If not, it's a little strong. And the fact that the second saving throw they have to make, and they're just stunned for a minute. It's not even like I feel like it should be.
Say it's stunned
one
for
roll.
A minute. Oh, go ahead.
I think it should be one roll. If you fail your save, you're stunned. You're stunned every round until you make a saving throw, and you take the damage. So that part could be, and it also I think it's the first saving throw. It's all or nothing, right? So
yeah, there's nothing in there about the
half damage.
So
yeah, so I mean, I guess that could be the mitigating factor as well. And so it's kind of tiered.
But it's a charisma saving throw, so there's a lot of things that just can't make charisma.
Yeah, well, this ability is really just meant to F with the totem barbarian. You're like, screw you, make a charisma saving throw, and we're gonna attack that thing you're not resistant to. So, all in all, it's a little weird in the writing, and I might have done it differently, but it's easy to armchair quarterback that, but it's not like totally game breaking. Now, using it as the player, whatever, using it as the GM, it's kind of a big deal, because if you fail that saving throw, you're just out of the fight.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I would need to change if I was using it as a DM, is that okay, well, you got to keep rolling, and perhaps your players can do something to give you aid so that you get advantage.
Well, I wouldn't even worry about that, as long as they're getting a saving throw. They at least had a chance. Right. But you're going back to save or suck, and you're just like, you're out of this fight. Go take a nap.
Yeah, that's never fun as a player.
And a lot of that has been taking out of 5e, so it's very rare when that does come up. So the next thing is the Great Machine and your pact boon. I thought this was a really fun and interesting section.
Yeah, so it basically is going to add, what you're going to get if you take Pact of the Chain, Pact of the Blade, or Pact of the Tome, to be more thematic with the Great Machine. It grants for the Pact of the Chain, it grants a Clockwork familiar instead of a familiar of the normal kind. So as opposed to getting one of the other familiar options, you get something that's Clockwork, and there's a whole section on Clockwork familiars in here, which is cool.
Yeah, and essentially they're just normal animals. They just have the construct the construct type, and you imbue it with the spirit instead of it being that type. So when it gets destroyed, or if you remake it, you're just putting the spirit into the new body, and with the caveat of you have to actually create the body. Yes. So it's not quite the same. I really like it, and I would totally let my players choose a special familiar and have either Clockwork Sprite, Imp, Quasit, Pseudo Dragon, all that. I think would be really cool. It would literally look like, the Pseudo Dragon would look like the creature from Xanathar's Guide under the tool section.
Yes. So Pact of the Blade grants you a thing of clockwork and gears, changing its shape as it unfolds for combat. So like see this box or this rod, and you hit a button, and it's like totally transforms.
It's just visual.
Pact of the Tome, as opposed to a book, you got a series of clocks and gears.
Basically, it's going to look like a Clockwork iPad or something, device.
Yeah, the Warlock knows how to manipulate the small buttons and levers on the device to cast each of the cantrips. If spells are added via the Book of the Ancient Secrets Invocation, the Warlock can add new gears instead of pages. So, fun.
Clockwork Familiar, there's a little sidebar for that. Then we get into Eldritch Invocations.
So we get, as we said, we get 3 new invocations. Cloud of Cogs, you have to be 3rd level, and of course have the Great Machine as your patron. You can cast the Gear Barrage once using a Warlock spell slot, once per long rest.
I absolutely hate this invocation because it says you have to use one of your slots.
Well, that fits the theme of
Not all of them. Some of them they do, and when it comes to Xanathar's Guide, they did a lot of fixing of that. If I was the GM, I would just change it, especially a long rest. Why not just say it's on your freaking list at this point? Because you literally have to cast it with one of your slots. And they might even be able to get it anyway as a warlock. So I'm just like, you're playing this character in my game. You just get one casting, once per long rest. Perfect.
Yeah, it grants you the slot, and that's how we've done warlocks in our games. Heat of the Furnace, again, prerequisite 3rd level, and Great Machine patron. You summon up the fires within. As long as you main concentration, your melee attacks do an additional d6 fire damage. Attackers within 5 feet of you that hit you take 1d6 fire damage. The heat doesn't affect you or your gear.
This one is awesome if you want to play a blade lock. This is an invocation. You can get it at 3rd level. You can have it right away. It's going to make you more effective in melee combat. Enemies will not even want to stand near you. I like it.
Now there's one thing in here that's a little weird. It says as long as you maintain concentration.
It's a concentration effect.
So it doesn't say what kind of action it sets to turn on, how often you can do it, but
you can't concentrate on other spells.
You can't concentrate on other spells. So it's like, I want to know, all right, how do I reset it? Can I not turn it on? If I failed my concentration, how do I turn it back on?
Yeah, it can use a little clarification. I would just say, maybe it should have a bonus action mechanic, or maybe it should just specify on your turn. Now, this being said, right, you can't use Hexblade in this at the same time. They've kind of seen to that.
Mm-hmm.
So that removes one of the things that warlocks just use all the time anyway. So I mean, that part might be kind of nice, so that it gives another alternative, and it has the extra ability of if they stand near you, they take damage too.
Right.
So I'm pretty much okay with it. Sure, a clarification of, hey, maybe it's a bonus action or something you have to do on your action. As a GM, I might just be like, yeah, you can just do it on your action. You just have to.
You turn it back on, but if you fail your concentration, it turns off.
Yeah, and then on your turn again, you could turn it back on.
Yeah.
So they can beat the fire right out of you.
So I like that. So the next one is, or the last one is Voice of the Machine. Just as the prerequisite of the Great Machine patron, spells you cast that charm or frighten creatures overcome the immunity of constructs to being normally immune to charmed or frightened. They still get a save if it applies. So you get to use your spells that would normally not be able to affect constructs, affect them.
And it's strong too, because normally those creatures are immune, so they usually don't have good saves for their mentals. So it's going to be super handy and useful, and there's a good possibility that you're going to actually get them to fail more often than not. But the other problem too is so what happens when you use Charm Person on something that's mindless and only follows orders?
And you put in a whole new set of orders.
I guess so, yeah.
All right, so that's the Warlock. Now we have the Wizard College Clockwork Mage. This is a fun one, if you ask me.
You get the normal thing of it costs you less money and time to write new spells in your book from the Clockwork, so you're not going to get as much use out of that feature because there's just less spells.
Yeah, it's weird because they don't have school clockwork. The clockwork spells are spread out amongst other things, so I'm guessing that applies to things that have clockwork in the title.
I guess so. That's the only thing I could think of, because how else would that even benefit them?
So 2nd level, you get Clockworks Charm. Whenever you cast Animate Construct spell, the duration increase the duration by a number of minutes equal to your proficiency bonus. 20th level, you can make the spell permanent until you dispel, but cannot have more than one permanent at a time. So it normally lasts concentration up to 10 minutes. So being able to add, 2 to 6 minutes to the duration is a little wonky, but not bad.
Yeah, it's not going to really do much for you in the bigger scheme of things.
I was like, well, if it lasts a minute, being able to, double it right away is kind of cool. Well, actually triple it, because you're getting this at second level, your proficiency bonus is 2, so you're going to add 2 minutes to it. But
let's break that down and let's open that up a little bit, right? What does that mean? Previously, it was going to last a combat. Now it's going to last 2 or 3 combats if they all happen right
quickly,
together. Yeah. And you don't spend a couple minutes moving between them, which you probably will. A couple minutes isn't going to be enough time to really do much of anything. Like literally run in a room, look around real quick. Yeah, so it's not super useful.
It's a freebie, so it's not bad. It's just not going to get you not a whole lot of bang. Now if it multiplied so that by the end, when your proficiency bonus is 6, you could get it for an hour.
It doesn't shine until you hit 20th level. Then it's awesome. You just always have a construct.
Right. Now the cool thing with animate construct, and we'll talk more on that later, is you can increase as the spell slot that you're using, and the size construct that you're animating is increased based off of what level spell slot you're using.
So, you get a bigger, more powerful construct.
6th level, we get metal shape. You gain the ability to reshape metal with a touch. So it's like, oh, I need a spoon, and you grab a piece of metal, and voila, it's a spoon. And the object gets to be bigger as you gain levels.
You still can't do anything particularly complex. You're not clockworking anything with this because you're allowed 2 hinges and a clasp.
Right.
So you can make a big chest out of metal. It's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
But the cool thing is there's the spell repair metal, and you can essentially affect. You can use this ability to get the effects of that spell. So it's got double uses. 10th level, you get Golem Form. You can transform yourself as an action into a living construct for up to a minute per level. You retain your mentals and the ability to cast spells. You can transform into a golem or clockwork creature whose CR is less than or equal to your current level in this class. Otherwise, the ability functions as per the druid's wild shape.
Except for it's way better than the druid's wild shape.
Well, yeah, because you're going to be a golem as opposed to a beast.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's the CR factor, because this is the same as casting polymorph, where it's up to your level, not a fraction of your level.
Correct.
So yeah, so it's really strong when you do this, and as you get up there and you have more things to kind of change into, this is going to be super useful.
So this is you're getting this ability at 10th level. So if you've sculpted your character at this point in time to be like, oh, I'm going to take haste and shield and these very battle spells just so that I can shape myself into, this thing. And it's pretty nice.
Well, not only that, the only thing I can see as far as how many times you can do it or how often is Druid Wild Shape, which means you're doing it twice per short rest. Now, the mitigating factor is that you can draw Druid Wild Shape for hours, where this is measured in minutes.
Right.
So it really is going to kind of be a combat ability or very situational and specific times that you're going to use it. Now, I mean, you're getting it at 10th level, so you're going to use it for a minimum of 10 minutes. So like if there's an obstacle you need to overcome or something, it's probably long enough to help you with that.
Yeah. So a lot of fun, a lot of theme there. And, I imagine there's going to be some great stories based on that ability. 14th level, you get Clockwork Mastery. You can use magic to bring constructs under your control. As an action, you can compel a construct within 60 feet to make an intelligence saving throw. It's a magical effect. If the saving throw fails, the construct becomes friendly to you and obeys your commands for an hour, or until you use this ability again, or until it takes damage from your allies. If the saving throw fails by 5 or more, the duration is extended to 6 hours, or until one of the other conditions is met. When the effect ends, the construct knows that, you did it. I like it. It's kind of cool. how often is it going to come up? I mean, if you're playing a very construct-heavy game, it could be
When it
really
does
awesome.
come up, when it does come up, it's strong though. Like, oh, Iron Golem. Well, actually, follow me around and help me through the rest of this dungeon, and then I need you to go for a really long walk.
So, like, I like the fact that it's in there, and it's got it's got the weird mechanic of save failed by 5 or more. Kobold Press really likes that mechanic. Kind of want to start adopting it in our games to have.
It's in 5e. There's a lot of monster saving throws that use it. Not a lot, but several. It's kind of like the replacement for Save or Suck.
Mm-hmm. So then we go on to the spells, and we're not going to go through all of them because there's 44 spells in here. But there is stuff, as I said, animate, construct. Yeah, the cool thing about this one that kind of mitigates its awesomeness is that in order to make make a construct for you to animate, you have to assemble it, and it's going to take gold and time, equal. So your gargantuan construct, which you can make, it's got stats here for it, costs 1,000 gold, whereas your tiny construct costs 150 gold. It's 10 times the number of hit points the thing has.
I see a little bit of a bigger problem here.
What's that?
Like, you have to have it on you in order to use this spell. And then it's not like the spell lasts a super long time.
It's true.
Like, do you got like a wagon, or a teams of horses and mammoths pulling that gargantuan thing with you behind you? Like,
so this would be the gargantuan one you leave back at the house, to defend when you're there in town, and
it's a freaking siege weapon. Like, you transport it to the battle, and be like, all right, Fluffy, go do your thing.
You're large and smaller. You can deal with that pretty easily. By the time you're able
a horse.
Well, by the time you're up there, like
bag of holding, you're thinking maybe.
You could have the bag of holding, or adventurers have wagons. They're going to be carrying loads of stuff, so it's not unheard of once you get to the level. Because in order to cast the large, you need to have 4th level spells. So I mean that means you're a 7th level, character. So it's not unheard of for you to be able to have a wagon to cart something like that around. But
in the dungeon?
Well, you're not always going to have the stuff in the dungeon. I mean, not all characters are going to be dungeon crawling.
Not this one with this large construct, that's for sure. Yeah. So small and tiny are the ones that I'm like, yeah, you could totally backpack those. You can Yoda them around and be like, unleash. The problem is that, they're not going to be super, super useful after a certain level.
Just attach the medium one to your Goliath Barbarian and ask him to carry it around.
Yeah. Hey, have you seen Star Wars? Do you like C-3PO? Great, I got one for you. It's just already assembled.
So, a lot of fun things. You have any things that spoke to you spell-wise?
So, there's a couple things to point out. We got Armored Heart, which is like big middle finger at Blade Ward. Because it's like, oh, look, bonus action cast lasts 1 round. As long as it's not adamantine or magic, you have resistance to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage. Kind of cool, but, at first I was like, man, it seems really strong first level spell. But then I was like, yeah, for 1 round you can do it. So it's not too bad. Generally, if a spellcaster is in the middle of everything, taking a lot of attacks, they got bigger issues to deal with. The Call the Hunter... that's really cool. This is a throwback to 3rd edition.
So it's an 8th level spell that allows you to, you detach a portion of your soul to become the embodiment of justice in the form of a clockwork outsider known as the Zealot. And it's a challenge 7 construct that's lawful good that is under your control. All right, so next we have Armored Shell. And this one's pretty amusing because it summons armor that you're not proficient with.
Right, so it's like, and then I was like, oh, it could be cool if you're proficient with armor, you can summon it and have it on you. It's way better than mage armor, right? And I was like, oh, wait a minute, why wouldn't I just wear the armor all the time? Like, it'd be really situational, like, oh, I'm going to a party, I'm proficient in armor, and I want to be able to armor up if I need to. So I was like, I don't know. So that one was kind of wonky.
It's a 1st level spell, and as you pump it up, as opposed to wearing the armor, you just get better armor as you do it. But it's not like the armor itself is magical, but it's not doesn't have a bonus to it.
I like the fact that we got Contagion, and it's like basically just added a new condition to that spell. So I thought that was really cool. Then the other thing that I really thought was kind of cool was the hellforging.
Hellforging is fantastic, and I read through it a couple of times because it doesn't say anywhere that the target has to be willing.
Because it doesn't, because you're summoning a spirit from where spirits are meant to suffer, and you're like cramming them into this body and be like, now you serve me.
I liked gremlins. You summon gremlins inside, a construct, and they just start tearing things apart.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. I think there's one more I want to mention, and then we'll wrap this up because we're getting kind of lengthy here.
I got one more I want to mention too, but it's not as much fun unless you're the dork that I am.
All right.
What's yours?
Lock armor.
All right.
I think lock armor is fun because basically you can basically trap someone in their armor. I think you can also use it on someone that's like a construct that's made of metal as well. It becomes like almost like a whole person, but instead of being a mental effect, it's just like, yeah, that suit of armor you're in.
It's just stuck together.
Yeah, it's just all fused together for now.
All right, for me, because I've got a very dorky cleric in Dave's game, this first level spell, Tireless. Casting time 1 action, range touch, duration 24 hours, no concentration. You grant machine-like stamina to the target. The target requires no food or drink or rest. It can move at 3 times its normal speed over land and perform 3 times the usual amount of labor, and the part that really matters to me, or read 3 times the normal rate. Creatures under the effect of the spell are immune to non-magical exhaustion and suffer no consequence for not sleeping or overexertion. The spell does not prevent magical fatigue or magical exhaustion. So I'm like, well, if all I'm doing is sitting around town, for this time, I could just read everything.
That's what your mind went when you read that. I went, wow, this is the ultimate create a sweatshop spell.
Well, yes, I understand the implications that you could do, with the greater scheme of things, but you could remove all of the extra, moving faster and being able to work harder, just, being able to read 3 times the speed for my knowledge cleric. He's like, yeah, that would be the stuff. That's what he would care about.
I lied. I got one more I want to mention.
Oh, okay. What do you got?
Robe of Shards.
Robe of Shards is awesome.
An action to cast it lasts a minute, no concentration.
Yep.
You create a robe of metal shards, gears, and cogs that provide a base AC of 14 plus dexterity modifier. It's a 6th level spell, by the way, folks. But it's like mage armor on steroids. As a bonus action, while protected by the Robe of Shards, you can command bits of metal from a fallen foe to absorb by your robes. Each infusion of metal increases the AC by 1 to a maximum of 18 plus dexterity modifier. So I just found it was really cool. You can also use a bonus action to dispel the robe, causing it to explode into a shower of flying metal that does 8d6 slashing damage plus 1d6 per point of basic non-dexterity AC above 14 to all creatures with 30 feet. It's actually weak for a 6th level spell, but I still like it.
I love it. Part of me is like, all right, when can I use this on an adventuring party? Because that's a lot of fun. It's like, I knock somebody down. You know what? I'm gonna absorb your longsword into my armor.
Yeah, and there's also some other really cool things. Like, I'm just going to transpose another plane in this whatever 30-foot, 20-foot section, and just swap them out for the duration or whatever.
There's a lot of really awesome spells in here. Dave says it's worth it for the art. Some people might want the player options. The spells alone are fantastic. I don't see why you wouldn't want this.
Yeah, one caveat is as the GM, you're going to want to look over stuff. And there's some things you might want to tweak. Some of this stuff is just it needs to be the power up level needs to be upped a little bit, and some of it needs to be turned down a little bit, and some of them might be like, well, this is weird. I'd rather do it that way. But at its base, I think this is a really valuable product. And usually we don't give like glowing reviews. I think we're usually fairly neutral with stuff.
Right.
But I really like this. I'm like, why aren't we using some of this stuff in our game?
So I mean, I recommended to Dave that we do this one because we've got the Clockwork Kingdom in our world. We've already got a basis for clockwork knowledge in the world. This is something that with just a minimal amount of effort, I think we would port this right in the Chimes of Discordia.
I have to agree. So, what do you guys think? Are you using it in your game? If not, why? You can let us know down in the comments below while you're at it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
While you're down there, go ahead and check the link in the description and get your copy over on Drive Through RPG.
So, until next time,
Stay nerdy.